Good morning. It is a Thursday morning today. I'm heading into work now, and today I thought I would talk to you about what it is like to live in China. If you haven't met before, my name is Katie, and on this channel I like to share lots of information about expat life, particularly in China because that's where I live at the moment. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then make sure you hit subscribe. So before I moved to China, I had lots of kind of preconceptions of what life in China was going to be like, and my preconceptions and my expectations against reality is quite different. So today I thought I would take you to school with me, show you a bit of my job, and kind of talk you through some of those things that I was wrong about and right about. Right, so whilst I'm in the Didi, which is like China's version of Uber, I thought I would talk to you about driving here in China. Now, I had been to China before. I visited here for like a month with my husband in 2013, and we loved it here, but we did experience a little bit of what life was like here, but like from a traveling point of view. And one of the things we did notice is like the erratic driving, and that's not just in China, that's the whole of Asia. And when we moved here, we were kind of like, oh, maybe driving will be a bit calmer here because Tianjin is a much smaller city than Beijing and like Shanghai. And we were like, oh, maybe it would just be a bit calmer. It is and it isn't. Like, there are rules of the road, but there are often times when you just kind of like cross and hope for the best. Like, actually crossing as a pedestrian is harder. It's so hard here because cars just go, and there's like, I don't really understand the rules of the road here. But what I will say is, now like talking to my TA at my school, there is actually things that China are doing and putting in place to change that. So one of the things is actually that there's a like driving ban. So there's certain days of the week that my TA Jessie can't drive on. So she has a car, and it depends on like your number plate. And there's certain number plates that are like more expensive than others. Like people can like auction on them, because there's certain number plates that means you can drive all the time, or you'll have like a weekend day off and stuff like that. But she can't drive on, I think it's on a Tuesday, she can't drive into school. So you can't be on the road between like 6-7 o'clock in the morning and then 7 o'clock at night. So I guess that's how China is trying to control congestion in the major cities. And I mean, it does work. Like, Tianjin doesn't really have that much traffic apart from during rush hour, and it's nothing like that's too heavy as well. It's not like in Beijing. We've been in Beijing and you can get really bad traffic there, but Tianjin is a lot different. But I'm in school now, and I don't know if I just managed to like film it or not, but my like colleague's TA Sarah is amazing. She is pregnant, and if it was a girl, she was going to call it Katie. She's now going to call it after my husband, who has no significance to her at all, but she likes the name. Don't get me started. But she did come in and give me, it's like nearly the end of term, so she gave me some chocolates, which is so nice to her. And it actually nicely leads on to my next expectation. So before I moved here, when we travelled here, everyone we met was really friendly, but a lot of the people we met were people who worked in hotels. So when we were moving here, funny enough, somebody who worked at this school, who has now left, but she was the person that interviewed me at this school, had told me that the Chinese people were quite difficult to like be around. It was quite difficult to understand them all the time, and because like English obviously is a second language here. And I had done a bit of research, and it was kind of really like mixed opinions. Some people said that locals were like really rude and they didn't understand boundaries and things like that. And then some people said that the locals were amazing. My experience, the locals are amazing here. Of course they're amazing. Like, I'm not going to say anything negative about them on this like channel, because they're amazing. Like, I have nothing to say. Like, I've been really privileged to work with some wonderful, wonderful people, like both local staff and non-local staff. But anyone that we've met outside of school, like even people that, you know, serve us in metro or Didi drivers, things like that, everyone is friendly, everyone is kind. And I think my personal opinion is I think a lot of people who talk about the local people in a negative manner probably have either only dealt with people when they're traveling. And what I will say is when we've travelled and it gets really busy, it can get really stressful because it can get so busy. And there very much is a culture here that they don't do queues. You know, there's not a queue. They don't line up for something. If there's a train that you're catching and you've got to go through security at certain times, you need to just walk en masse because people will just push through, because that's what they do here, because there's so many people here. And like, I think that's probably the only thing I can think of that they might be referring to. I know there are people, like, when you are out in the street, and I think a lot of this comes from pollution though as well, is that people do spit on the street a lot, but again, that's just their habit and that's what happens here. It's acceptable, it's accepted. So I don't think that's something to say, like, to comment on a whole group of people about. But I think really, like, that's the only two things I would think of to even mention that's, like, different, in the sense of, like, you know, why someone from the West might think differently. But anyway, I personally feel like everyone I've worked with, you know, all the local staff here are wonderful. And yes, like, English is their second language. And I'm not, to be fair, like, the people I work with speak beautiful English. Some of them speak better English than I do. But, you know, people on the streets, you know, people who work in restaurants and bars and cafes, some of them might not speak English at all, but they try their best. And they try their best to understand me when I'm pointing at pictures and hoping for the best. Like, sorry, I went off on a long ramble. My summary: all the local people here, both whether I've worked with them and been friends with them, or people that we've just, you know, met in restaurants and bars, are very kind, are very helpful, are very friendly, and we've had no problems with the locals at all. They're just wonderful people, and actually that's something I'm going to miss so much when we do leave China, because I think they are some of the most friendly group of people we've ever met whilst we've travelled the world. Hi guys, it's now lunchtime, and I have just sent my kids off to lunch, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about expectations versus reality of life in China. So I wanted to talk to you actually because it is lunchtime now, like I said, and I've got my salad, and I'm going to have that here. But at my school we can have, like, lunch at our school, and one of the things that I was expecting about living in China is that I would just fall in love with everything I eat here, because when I travelled here I enjoyed the food that I tried. When I'm at home, I love Chinese food, so I thought, oh yeah, it'd be great, I can eat Chinese food all the time. Yeah, it is different. So obviously, like, food in the West is completely different to food here. Like, the Chinese food in the West is completely different to the Chinese food you'll find here. There's lots and lots of dishes that we have in England that we don't have here. And, like, one of the for example, in England we have something called sweet and sour balls, which is like chicken in battered balls, then covered in sweet and sour, and I love them. Here you don't get that. You can get chicken, sometimes you can get chicken battered, but it's not like balls of chicken, and it's kind of done differently. But very often or not, like, you'll get sauce, but the sauce is a lot more sour than the sweet and sour sauce that you'll get in England. And yeah, so it's just not quite the same. I think the sweet and sour sauce that we have in England is kind of like it's from, like, the south of China. So I really don't get that type of sweet and sour, like, food here in the north of China at all. And, like, I enjoy noodles, and I enjoy noodle dishes and rice dishes, and I do enjoy those types of food. But the only problem that I do find is that there are certain types of food that, like, just has a really distinct taste to it that, like, my TA Jessie will say she absolutely loves, and I just can't deal with it. So that's one of the things, is that there is lots of food that I really enjoy here, but on the other hand there's also lots of food that I'll try and I won't enjoy as much. But I guess that's probably the same with everywhere in the world, but it's just something that I didn't anticipate as much, as that I'd be a little bit more fussier about food here than I thought I would be. But yeah, I think one of the other things as well actually is that I can't deal with spicy food very well, and actually I expected food here to be really spicy, and it's not, and it is at the same time, in the sense that, like, you really can get lots of dishes that aren't spicy at all, and then you could ask to, like, modify them, which is fantastic. I didn't expect that I'd be able to do that. But on the other hand, they use chili oil, and it's kind of it's a different type of, like, chili that you're used to anywhere else in Asia or the world. It's kind of like they have here in Tianjin, they often use Sichuan, which is like a Sichuan pepper, which is kind of like, they call it a numbing pepper, which means that it's kind of like, I don't have spicy food that often, but Callum often talks about how it's a different type of spice. It kind of just numb your mouth quite a bit, so it's something that I didn't expect to have here, but I'm glad that I can modify food to not have it spicy. Right, so I've just had my lunch, my class off on Mandarin. I have some free time now, and I have just finished my reports. Whoop whoop. So I'm going to get on with some bits and bobs. To be honest, I haven't really got much left to do like this year because reports are done, data's done. Like my classroom, I'm kind of like tidying up bit by bit, so it's kind of getting there, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna just like I don't know, just check that. Like, I think I do need to like copy all of my stuff, like anything from my laptop to my hard drive, anything like any resources that I want to keep. I need to do that and then just like clear everything out. So I'll probably just do that now, to be honest. But yeah, that's kind of all I've got to do now because there's like 2 weeks after term. But first of all, I thought I would tell you one more thing that I had an expectation of and the reality of it. So obviously when I travelled here in 2013, yeah. When I travelled in China in 2013, we went to all of the like tourist attractions. So we went to Beijing and we visited the Forbidden City. We went to see the Terracotta Warriors in Xi'an. We went to see the pandas in Chengdu. And because we were doing a lot of sightseeing, we ended up being like staying in a lot of the Hutong areas and kind of being surrounded by ancient China, as it were. The expectation, like I expected the whole of China to look like that. And like it sounds ridiculous now I say it because I don't know what, like there were times when I didn't see that everywhere, but I expected there to be like a lot of ancient China everywhere. There really isn't. Like you can go to the tourist sites and there's lots of things that are really interesting to see all over China, but actually like most cities are built up cities. Like think Hong Kong, think Shanghai. They are really big built up cities with skyscrapers and incredible architecture. And for Tianjin, like actually Tianjin used to be owned by like I don't know what the fact is. I think there's like 9 or 10 different countries that used to own Tianjin itself. So you have so much like European influence on the architecture here. There are skyscrapers everywhere. There's like 5-star big chain hotels here. And actually there's only a few kind of temples around the city that I think there's like 2. So there's really like everything is a lot more modern than I expected it to be, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, that was one of the things that kind of surprised me was how there actually in some cities and like actually even in Beijing when we visit Beijing now, it's actually you do have to go out and look for ancient China, especially in some of the cities. Like if you go to cities like Guangzhou and Shenzhen, you have to go out of your way to find ancient China, which, you know, for someone who's living here, I think it's great to be able to go and see the history of China and the culture of China somewhere, but actually experiencing day-to-day life, I think it's great that there's like skyscrapers and modern hotels and all those types of things as well. This is perhaps one of the most frustrating things you can see when you are living in China. Okay, I nearly forgot one. So I am trying to load a website on my laptop and the VPN on my laptop is not connecting. So that is something I wanted to talk about. So when I moved here, I knew that there were certain sites that were blocked. When I had traveled here before, we had to have a VPN to access things like Facebook and Twitter. But because we were here and we were only here for like a few weeks, it didn't really matter that much. And we just kind of like checked into Facebook. Didn't really think it was going to be a massive problem. It's not a massive problem, but we try on a website from here and it's really difficult. Like sometimes the VPN can just go down. There's stuff going on in China at the moment. But like sometimes because we live here, it's really obvious now what happens is that like, so we use ExpressVPN, which like I would recommend. I always say this because I do really recommend it. Is probably the best one to have in China. However, it's also the most targeted one by the Chinese government. Like if there is a major event happening, so if there's a big political meeting going on, or if there's anything happening in, you know, areas of China that they don't want, you know, people to be talking about, whatever is happening, whatever's going on in the world, they will like crack down on the VPN. At the moment stuff is going on in Hong Kong, so it means that they are cracking down on the VPNs, and it's been really difficult to like connect to the VPN for the last few days, which is so frustrating because all I want to do is like go on here and go on to CBB so that I can show my kids something in my next lesson, and I can't get onto it, and it's so annoying. And like so that makes my teaching really hard. But also like when I go home tonight, I know that there's a blog post that I need to edit and get up like for tomorrow, and I can't do it if the VPN's not working. And like sometimes the VPN does work and then it's just really slow. So that's something that really frustrates me about China, and it's probably one of the like the things that makes me want to move, because it can just be so difficult. Like, I'm sure a normal person wouldn't find it that bad, but because we run websites, like that's our job, like that's something that we do outside of teaching. Like Callum's job is to run Creative Travel Guide, and he finds it infuriating to do so. So that is something I expected, and I didn't expect it to be as bad as it is. Right, so I'm on my way home now, and I wanted to talk to you about a few more things that I noticed when I moved to China that weren't what I expected it to be. So one of the things is English. So when we came to China in 2013, we obviously visited Beijing and Shanghai, and a lot of people did speak English, but when we visited places like Xi'an and Chengdu, people didn't really speak too much English, but it was okay to get around. So I wasn't sure like how much like English was spoken when we were in China. When we came here, I think because in Southeast Asia there's a lot of people that do speak English, so if you go to like a really nice restaurant, like there will be someone there that speaks English. I will say here is that I work with a lot of people who are Chinese who do speak really good English because they work at a British international school, but apart from those people, there's not that many people that I've met that speak like English at all. So I would say like maybe like 10% of the people I've met in China, maybe it's less than that. Like people, like if when you go to restaurants and bars, they often don't speak English. If you go to like a restaurant in a like Western styled hotel, you might have one person that speaks English in the restaurant, but like not everyone will. Often like if you go to Western hotels, you might have someone at the reception desk that speaks English, but for example, like we went to a Ramada hotel in Xi'an and no one spoke English at all. Yeah, it depends really like where you go, but generally speaking, less people speak English here than I expected, which is absolutely fine. Like obviously it makes it a little bit more challenging for us to get around, but generally speaking, because I've mentioned before, like everyone here is really kind and really patient. We can use apps to like translate and understand each other, which is really helpful. So it's not really a problem at all. But yeah, so I think that's something that I didn't expect when I'm here, and it is a bit of a difference. And I would definitely recommend, if you're thinking about coming to live in China, try and pick up just a little bit of Mandarin at least, because I know like I didn't really learn any Mandarin at all for my first year, and then in my second year I've started picking up a little bit more, and it's helped to like function. But I wish I had learned a bit more when like I first moved over here and first got the job over here. So yeah, that's something that's different to what I expected. One more thing, my husband just texted me and said that he was going to make fajitas for dinner tonight, which is lovely, but that is something that I just remembered is something that I expected to have here more was Western food. Now you can get really good Western food in Tianjin, and actually in places like Beijing and Shanghai and definitely Hong Kong, you'll be able to get lots and lots of Western brands in stores. But in Tianjin it's quite difficult to get Western food in like Western products. There's a shop called Metro that you can get a lot of stuff from, but apart from that, like there really isn't loads of places that things like that is available. I think like in Tianjin we have one really good Indian restaurant. I think maybe we have two restaurants and one of them is really good. I think there's like two Mexican restaurants. I'm just listing on the food that I like here. But yeah, so like there's not loads and loads of Western food available. There is like you know like American style restaurants to some extent. But when it comes to like products, I think I have done a video actually about BLT, which is a good place to get Western products as well. I'll leave that link in the description below. But I thought that you'd be able to get more like Western products available, which is fine. To be fair, like it's been fine because we've been enjoying like trying the local food. Even if we don't like it all, we've enjoyed trying it, which is important. But that's definitely something to consider if there's a particular brand of food that you really like. So for example, me and my husband really like fajitas. We really like Old El Paso's like flavoured fajitas. So we stock up, like when we go home in the holidays, we stock up on Old El Paso like sachets and bring them over and use that. So yeah, if there's a certain brand that you particularly like, you might not get it over here. So that's something to think about if you are moving here. So I am nearly home. Me and Cam are going to have some fajitas tonight, and we're actually in the middle of a project that I will be talking to you about a little bit later on in the next few weeks perhaps, but we're going to be doing a bit more of that work this evening, so I'm going to stop this video now. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure you give me a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. If you want to see more of my face, then hit subscribe, and until next time, I shall see you soon. Bye!